Natasha Phiri does join us now to talk further about this. Natasha, a very good evening to you. Thanks for taking the time. I know it's been a bit of a long day. Just going back to the issue that Janet Love, the Commissioner, was talking about, the constitutionally enshrined right to vote for all South Africans, looking at those three missions. I wonder, was there a discussion about a way around it? Perhaps online registration for citizens who are in those conflict-ridden countries?
Well, thank you so much, Sipiso, and good evening to our viewers. Well, the IEC has been in conversation with DIRCO over this issue, and I think the issue here and the concern, Sipiso, is that South Africans living in these countries, namely Sudan, Israel, and Ukraine, may not be able to vote because of the conflict that's actually happening, in their countries. Online voter registration is not a problem. Remember, the portal has been open since last year in December. And of course, the Commission has told us that the number of South Africans living abroad has actually increased from 18,000 to over 29,000 people. But the problem here is that the IEC, remember, doesn't have the capacity for South Africans or those who are actually on the voters roll to actually vote online. Yes, there is a new online voter registration system that the IEC has actually introduced, but the problem is online voting. We're not there as a country, so it needs South Africans to manually vote, and hence South Africans overseas will get an opportunity to vote when the date of the elections are pronounced, either 10 to 14 days before, the election date. So that is the issue in regards to those three missions. And unfortunately, like Commissioner Janet Love had said, that time is of the essence, and literally their hands are tied when coming to this issue.
No, it would be interesting to see how they resolve that, Natasha, because I'm just thinking in terms of when people are incapacitated, how then they are allowed to vote from their homes. I wonder if, legally speaking, such an arrangement, given though the dangers of conflict, I understand, must make it difficult. So let's go back to the Commission describing its registration drive as successful thus far. Please just give us a brief overview of some of these successes.
Well, definitely, Tepi. So we've highlighted, the Commission has actually highlighted two milestones. First and foremost, the voters' roll now currently stands at 27 million, or actually has surpassed the 27 million mark. You would remember that initially the voters' roll was at 26.2 million before last year's voter registration weekend. It then shot up to around 26.8 million. And for the first time in the history of South Africa, the voters' roll is actually sitting at over 27 million. You would remember, correct me if I'm wrong, the first elections in 1994, over 19 million South Africans actually came out in their numbers. So the IEC has actually lauded this as an achievement and as a milestone. The second is the fact that the online registration platform has actually proved to be the mainstay of, registration between the general voter registration weekends. And the hope is that more people actually go and register online. So if they can't go make it to their voting station, they'd be actually able to actually, do this process online, which is quite quick. I myself had once, registered online, so I think it was a quick process for me. But also the IEC is somewhat satisfied, or somewhat pleased at its voter education. I mean, as a testament to that, we started our day off at the Hoshimampuri prison, and you get a general sense that more and more people, more and more South Africans, prisoners, inmates themselves, are actually interested in voting. We spoke to the gentleman that was actually in our package today, and he actually underscored the importance of voting. Yes, they are behind bars, but remember, Correctional Services is of the view that voting is a fundamental right to every South African, and nobody, including an inmate, should actually be denied that right. So today at the Hoshimamburi prison, we spoke to prisoners or inmates rather who actually registered to vote. And the goal for correctional services is that this time around they actually want to register around 100,000 inmates that are in the voter population, as opposed to the likes of, I think, 2014, 19% of inmates had actually, voted in 2019, the last, national provincial elections. 15,000 inmates had actually voted. So they actually want that number to actually increase. Then going back to South Africans who are living abroad, of course, that number has now increased to over 29,000. And the hope then, Tshepiso, is that more and more South Africans are going to vote. We're going to a very crucial weekend. This is the last and final voter registration weekend on the 3rd, and the 4th of February, Saturday and Sunday. Voting stations will be open from 8 to 5 p.m. And of course, for those who have temporary IDs, want to get temporary IDs, who are actually eager to, register for these elections, Home Affairs offices will also be open from 8 to 5 p.m. So generally, there is no excuse for nobody to actually go out in their numbers to their voting station or actually register online to vote.
Natasha Phiri, reporter on that story.